Well, Taiwan is not happy with the United States. You might even say they're pissed off at the United States after a member of the United States Congress said that it was under consideration that they might bomb Taiwan's semiconductor plants, you know, the place where we get all of the chips in the world to run our computers, that the United States would consider bombing Taiwan Semiconductor if China invades Taiwan. Wrap your head around this crazy story. And does it have anything to do with Nancy Pelosi many months ago going to Taiwan and meeting with Taiwan Semiconductor? Oh man, let's peel this onion back. Dan Cohen is following this story for us from Washington, D.C. Dan Cohen is our redacted correspondent from Washington, D.C. Dan, good to see you. Try to help us understand what kind of craziness members of Congress are saying today.
Well, Clayton, the Taiwanese Minister of National Defense had some choice words for the U.S. following the latest suggestion that Washington will actually bomb the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or the TSMC, its fabrication plants in Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion. The minister said that Taiwan's armed forces would not tolerate the destruction of any Taiwanese facility, and that the armed forces are responsible for defending Taiwan and its people, materials, and strategic resources. So the Taiwanese Minister of Defense talking about defending itself from the United States. Really remarkable. So that statement came in response to comments from Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton, who was on the House Select Committee on China. Watch this.
You know, one of the interesting ideas that's floated out there for deterrence is just making it very clear to the Chinese that if you invade Taiwan, we're going to blow up TSMC. I just throw that out not because that's necessarily the best strategy, but because it's an example of debate that's out there. And of course, the Taiwanese really don't like this idea, right?
Notice he was interrupted and there was pushback from his fellow panelist, Michelle Flournoy, the longtime Pentagon official who nearly became the first female Secretary of Defense, breaking the glass ceiling with a bomb, I guess. She pushes back and says that blowing up the TSMC is a crazy idea, but then Seth Moulton actually further confirms that this plan is being actively discussed.
Can I have a little inter-party dispute here on the blowing up TSMC? If you do that, you have a $2 trillion economic impact on the global economy within the first year, and you'd put manufacturing around the world at a standstill. I mean, this is a terrible idea.
I'm not promoting the idea. I'm not promoting the idea, Michelle.
You're just saying making the threat.
What I'm saying is these are some of the things that are actually actively being debated amongst U.S. policymakers.
So Moulton is not the first official to bring this up publicly. Former National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, who was served as National Security Advisor for 3 administrations, he made headlines in March when he publicly said that in the event of a war over Taiwan, that the U.S. should blow up the semiconductor fabrication plants so China can't take them over. There's also an infamous U.S. Army War College paper from 2021 saying, quote, the United States and Taiwan should lay plans for a targeted scorched earth strategy that would render Taiwan not just unattractive if ever seized by force, but positively costly to maintain. This could be done most effectively by threatening to destroy the facilities belonging to the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. And then, of course, there was the viral satirical tweet from our buddy Garland Nixon about U.S. plans for the destruction of Taiwan. That tweet was taken seriously in Taiwan and in China. So because of all of this, the Council on Foreign Relations, the premier Washington think tank, this week published a paper discouraging public discussion of blowing up the TSMC plant in Taiwan because, quote, discussion of destroying Taiwan's most famous industry and the source of much pride among Taiwanese is a gift to Chinese Communist Party propagandists, and that, quote, the notion that one needs to destroy Taiwan in order to save it is also likely to undermine the willingness of Taiwanese people to resist. While this discussion of blowing up the TSMC's fabrication plant in Taiwan is going on, the TSMC is currently building a massive plant in Arizona. We have exclusive footage of this plant. It sits on a 1,129 acre plot of land on the outskirts of the Phoenix metropolitan area near a suburb called Anthem. So you can see the construction is underway. It's far along in the process. The TSMC announced this plant in May 2020 with a pledge of $12 billion. And this was under some kind of pressure from the Trump administration. Then National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, who more recently made the comments about blowing up the Taiwan plant, actually flew to Arizona in June 2020 to congratulate then Governor Doug Ducey on the TSMC plant. Fast forward to August 22, then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi flies to Taiwan and meets with TSMC executives. Days later, Congress passes the CHIPS Act, which provides $52 billion in subsidies to encourage chip manufacturers to build in the U.S. In December, the TSMC said it would spend $40 billion on the Arizona plant. So it sure appears that there's some pressure from Pelosi there. Now, the New York Times published a really fascinating piece this past February showing that the TSMC Arizona plant that they're building is basically a boondoggle. This is direct quote from the article. TSMC said the U.S. construction could be at least 4 times the cost in Taiwan, driven by labor expenses, permits, regulatory compliance, and inflation. It quotes the chairman of the private equity firm Kirkland Capital, Kirk Yang, who says that TSMC's investment in the U.S. from a business perspective makes no sense at all. And he adds that the TSMC might have been forced to set up a factory in the U.S. because of political considerations. So, hinting that Pelosi trip and the Trump administration before that basically twisted the arm of the TSMC into spending tens of billions of dollars on this Arizona fabrication plant. And I would expect that the New York Times is basically understating the whole thing. There's another article in an outlet called FDI Intelligence that says that the TSMC is building the plant in order to placate the U.S. So further hinting that this is a result of pressure from Washington. It quotes Scott and W. Jones, the president of cost modeling company IC Knowledge, who says that the fact that there are no specifics about a site and the start date is so far out makes me think this is an announcement of a fab they hope they never have to build. That was back in 2020. Clearly, that we're much further along. This thing is well under construction. And there are all kinds of other major problems identified in the New York Times piece. It says that TSMC also needs suppliers close by to provide the Arizona plant with raw materials, equipment, and critical parts. Yet some suppliers that are trying to join it, they said they were experiencing labor challenges and high costs. And it adds that some TSMC engineers said they were concerned about how the Arizona factory would blend American and Taiwanese employees, and that in Taiwan, engineers work long hours and weekend shifts, joking that they will sell liver to work for the chip manufacturer. Such sacrifices may be less appealing to employees in the U.S. And it also adds that the most difficult thing about wafer manufacturing is not technology. The most difficult thing is personnel management. Americans are the worst at this because Americans are the most difficult to manage. And finally, the other major flaw in this whole plan, well, Apple CEO Tim Cook said in highly publicized statements that Apple will use chips from the TSMC Arizona plant, but that plant will only be capable of producing chips for older, outdated Apple products. None of the new iPhones, not your iPhone 15 or the A or M series computers, which are the top of the line. So this plant, at best, will be several years behind the Taiwanese plants, which the U.S. is considering bombing anyway.
It is an unbelievable story. I mean, so the United States, in order to make Taiwan less attractive, will bomb Taiwan Semiconductor. But hey, Nancy Pelosi's worked out a deal. You'll bring your Taiwan Semiconductor plant to Arizona, and we'll set up a version of it here because we're planning to bomb that one. And you and I were talking beforehand. it almost sounds crazy, but then when you think about it in terms of Nord Stream, the Nord Stream pipeline bombing, we hear from President Biden that they plan to take out Nord Stream from a number of members, Victoria Nuland and others, of the Biden administration, and then the Nord Stream pipeline is destroyed. So they're telling us their plans, that we will in fact bomb the Taiwan semiconductor plant. So it sounds absurd and preposterous, but they're planning on doing this. This could lead to a catastrophic problem worldwide with global chip shortages. We saw what happened during the pandemic. And to your point, in Arizona, the United States has 1 million open manufacturing jobs. They're open right now. You can go and get a job in manufacturing. Americans don't want these jobs. They do not want these jobs. So we're going to have how many thousands of Taiwanese are going to relocate to the United States in order to work in this plant? Because the Americans aren't going to work in this plant. So what are they going to do? This thing is going to sit vacant down there. I mean, are there job postings yet for this plant? Have you been able to uncover any sort of, they're hiring thousands of people right now, or is this thing just sitting there?
Yeah, I mean, they are hiring people, but whether they're able to actually replicate the incredibly complex and advanced processes that are done in Taiwan. I mean, this isn't, like a teddy bear factory where you just, put stuffing in it and stick the head on and onto the conveyor belt. This is one of the most complex manufacturing processes in the world. And because the U.S. has, of course, outsourced it over the decades, it's become located in Taiwan. This is totally specialized. And there's a certain, like we're talking about, there's a certain cultural thing that the U.S. just doesn't have, where in order to do this, we have too many labor requirements and sort of regulations in the United States, where this has to be done overseas for it to be successful, and they need that basically like sweatshop labor. And so to just say one day, oh, we're just going to transport that back to the United States, all the evidence shows that it's not going to work.
It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. This idea of bringing manufacturing back to the United States, that ship has sailed. It's not going to happen. And I'm also like at a 30,000 foot level. This is the United States admitting openly that they are going to be involved in a war with China. Like, we're going to bomb Taiwan if China invades. We will be actively involved. I mean, I know President Biden said that in 60 Minutes interview, that we will actively be involved. We will send men and women, American men and women, to fight China if Taiwan is attacked. So this is yet another confirmation of a future conflict with China.
Exactly. That's what the U.S. is planning for. They don't care about having some aircraft carriers sitting at the bottom of the sea with, tens of thousands, whatever, American soldiers going with it. They don't care about the enormous humanitarian catastrophe that people will suffer in Taiwan. So much for caring about the Taiwanese, let alone mainland China or anywhere else. So it's just total catastrophe is what the U.S. is planning on. And it's not as if this is a two-way street. Like, the U.S. isn't, looking at, or China is not looking at like Florida or like Long Island. We're gonna take Long Island and, send our military and our officials there and recognize its independence. So this is totally just U.S. aggression against China in Asia. It's completely insane.
Well, just all I got to say is watch Nancy Pelosi's stocks. If she suddenly sells her stocks in these chip companies, that's probably an indication that something is about to happen. That's a telltale sign from Nancy Pelosi. She's an excellent stock picker. Dan Cohen, thank you for following this crazy story for us. And you heard it here first. We'll see. Now we have it on record, their plans to bomb this thing. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Clayton.
Unbelievable.
Jeez, that's like a jealous ex. If I can't have you, nobody can.
That's crazy.
Their entire Lifetime television for women plots that are just like that.
But in that analogy, though, because they built that plant in Arizona, that's like, getting mad at your ex, and then if I can't have you, nobody can. I'll take your sister, who wasn't as good, but I'll take your sister, and then nobody can have you.
Ooh, you should join the.
Shit, man.
Yeah, they should hire you during the writer's strike. Go and write for TV.
And if you go like on Indeed.com and you look at like the job postings, there are like 61 jobs posted for Taiwan Semiconductor in Arizona right now, but a lot of them are like managerial level, like kind of higher up level. Factory manager of the main area, water resource manager, environmental manager. So they're hiring at the high level. It'll really be interesting to see like the thousands of actual manufacturing jobs and what that entails. We'll be keeping our eye on the story. I'm fascinated by this. I just love that they're openly telling us we're going to bomb that. We're going to bomb that. When it comes to Nord Stream, we know how that ends. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.